Hello, Chris Green here with the Flood Insurance Guru, and today we're talking about building codes. Like you see some of the buildings right here behind me. Are building codes causing more flood risk, more flooding? We're going to talk about those things a little bit today. Today we're talking about building codes and maybe floodplain management guidelines. If you live in a special flood hazard area like the one you can see here right behind me, we're actually standing in an AE flood zone right now. So they have special requirements on building codes that they have to follow. Like the properties you can see behind me, they have to follow certain floodplain management guidelines, especially if they were new construction. However, if these properties were in maybe a flood zone X, they have to follow different guidelines. So the question comes into play, what happens when X goes to AE? What happens when low risk goes to high risk? Are these building codes that didn't have to be followed actually causing more damage to buildings? They absolutely could be. So the question comes into play, should we have the same building code standards, whether it's a low risk flood zone or a high risk flood zone? So one day, if this flooding does come up, you have the same standards across the board. That's a question we've been asked a lot lately. And that's something that we're actually working with a lot of floodplain managers, a lot of building code departments on, is looking at creating universal building code standards no matter what the flood zone is. Because as we've seen this year, it does not take anything for an area to flood. When you had 13 inches of rain in Birmingham, Alabama in less than a day, you had 17 inches in Waverly, Tennessee, throw flood zones out the window. So if you want to know more about how building codes could possibly impact your flood insurance premiums, or maybe even impact the way you have to build a house or a commercial building, click below to visit our website, floodinsuranceguru.com. Remember, we have an educational background in flood mitigation, which means we can help you understand the flood risk like this one right here behind me, your flood insurance, and mitigating your risk long term. Thank you.